As the golden hues of sunset painted the Chicago skyline, I, Patrick Harper, a 24-year-old fresh from Northwestern University, unpacked the last box in my tiny apartment on the edge of Wrigleyville. The neighborhood's mix of rowdy Cubs fans and hipster cafes felt like the perfect backdrop for my new life. I'd just snagged my entry-level job at Apex Marketing, a sleek firm downtown where the air hummed with brainstorming sessions and the clack of keyboards. I was pumped but nervous, jotting down notes on company lingo and trying to remember everyone's names during orientation. By my second week, that's when I met Sophia. At 45, she carried herself with this effortless vibe that made her look like she was in her prime, maybe mid-30s at most, with her sharp bob haircut, warm hazel eyes, and a laugh that could light up the dimmest conference room. She was the senior account manager assigned to mentor me, walking me through the CRM software, pitch decks, and how to handle finicky clients without losing your cool. It started innocently enough, with a dumb joke in the break room. I was fumbling with the Keurig when she walked in, and she mentioned she'd been with the company for over a decade. Without thinking, I blurted, "Wow, you must have more war stories than my Uncle Joe from Nam." I cringed immediately, heat rushing to my face, but Sophia just threw her head back and laughed. A genuine, belly-deep sound that eased the tension. "Uncle Joe's Tales, huh? That's a new one," she said, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "I like a guy who's not afraid to put his foot in his mouth." Her words hung in the air, and suddenly I couldn't stop thinking about her. Every time she passed my cubicle, that same warmth spread through my chest. I told myself it was just admiration for her expertise, but deep down I knew it was more. She had this way of making the mundane exciting, like turning a status meeting into a storytelling session about past campaigns gone wrong. Over the next few weeks, our interactions grew from quick hellos to lingering conversations by the printer or in the elevator. Sophia asked about my life outside work, how I was settling into the city, what I did for fun. I'd ramble about catching games at Wrigley Field, experimenting with craft beers at local breweries, or binging true crime podcasts on my commutes via the L train. She listened like she really cared, nodding and sharing bits of her own world. One rainy afternoon, as thunder rumbled outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, we ended up working late on a client proposal. "So, what's your go-to when the world's weighing you down?" she asked, leaning back in her chair with a steaming mug of chamomile tea. I admitted to hitting the trails in Lincoln Park or ordering greasy deep-dish pizza from Giordano's to drown my sorrows. She smiled, her expression softening as she reminisced about her younger days. Surviving on PBJ sandwiches during her first job in New York, chasing dreams that led her back to the Midwest after a messy divorce. That was the first time she opened up about her past. No kids, no regrets, just a story of rebuilding after her ex left her high and dry 5 years ago. She spoke with such quiet strength, no trace of anger, just lessons learned. It hit me how different she was from the girls my age I dated in college. Superficial flings fueled by frat parties and late-night texts. Sophia had depth, like the Great Lakes we both loved visiting on weekends. I found myself daydreaming about asking her out for a real coffee, not the office swill, but doubt crept in. She was 21 years older. What if she thought I was just some kid with a crush? During a team happy hour at a dive bar in River North, she casually mentioned being happily single these days, focusing on me. My heart raced like I'd chugged an energy drink. As we walked back to the office parking garage, the city lights reflecting off the Chicago River, I wanted to spill everything, but all I managed was, "Catch you Monday." She paused, tilting her head with a knowing smile. "You know, Patrick, sometimes you gotta grab life by the horns before it bucks you off," she said softly, her words wrapping around me like a cozy flannel on a crisp fall night. From there, our talks deepened. We'd discuss everything from her passion for vinyl records, spinning old Motown hits on her turntable, to my pressure from my folks back in suburban Ohio to make something of myself. The age gap? It barely registered anymore. It was just us, two people connecting in a sea of deadlines and deliverables. At the company's holiday party in a swanky ballroom overlooking Millennium Park, Sophia showed up in an emerald green dress that hugged her figure just right, her confidence turning heads. I mustered the courage to approach her by the open bar, recycling my earlier joke with a flirty twist. Got any more war stories for a rookie like me? She stepped closer, the scent of her vanilla perfume mingling with the pine from the decorations, and whispered, "Maybe we could make our own story, if you're up for the adventure." My world tilted. Was she serious? Her grin faded into the crowd as she was pulled away for a toast, leaving me standing there, pulse pounding, mind racing with possibilities. The following week, I could barely focus. Her words looped in my head during every Zoom call. In the kitchenette, grabbing snacks, she noticed my distraction. "Penny for your thoughts? You look like you've got the weight of the Windy City on your shoulders." It was my opening, but fear held me back. The what-ifs of office gossip, the generational differences, the risk of ruining a great mentorship. But then, one Thursday evening as we wrapped up a campaign brainstorm, the office emptying out, she suggested, "I'm starving. Want to hit that burger joint down the block?" My treat. We ended up at Shake Shack, munching on shack burgers and crinkle-cut fries under the fluorescent lights. Halfway through, she cut to the chase. "I've seen the way you look at me, Patrick. No need to play coy." I confessed my worries about the age thing, about boundaries. "Boundaries are just lines in the sand," she replied, her hand brushing mine across the table. "And this? It feels right to me, too." We talked for hours. About her ex's betrayal that left her questioning love, my fears of never living up to expectations. She said I made her feel young again, challenged her in ways she hadn't expected. As we stepped out into the chilly night air, snow flurries starting to fall, her fingers intertwined with mine briefly. "Let's take it slow. Keep it between us for now," she murmured. "But I'm in if you are." Back at work, we played it cool, professional nods in the halls, but those secret smiles carried our hidden spark. Sophia's place became our sanctuary, a cozy loft in Logan Square filled with bookshelves and abstract art. We'd sip craft IPAs, sharing dreams, her travels to the Grand Canyon, my aspirations to start my own agency someday. The age difference. It enriched us. She taught me patience and perspective. I reminded her of spontaneity and passion. We didn't need labels or approval. We had each other, and that was enough to make my heart feel full for the first time. The weeks that followed felt like a Chicago summer. Warm, vibrant, and fleeting, with every moment bursting with possibility. Sophia and I carved out our own little world, a bubble of stolen glances and late-night talks that made the city feel like it was ours alone. We kept things discreet at Apex Marketing, sticking to our mentor-mentee facade during office hours. But after work, we'd escape to her loft, where the city's hum faded behind her jazz records spinning Billie Holiday or Ella Fitzgerald. She'd kick off her heels, pour us glasses of red wine, and we'd sprawl on her vintage leather couch, dissecting life. I told her about growing up in Dayton, Ohio, where my dad, a high school football coach, drilled discipline into me, and my mom, a nurse, taught me to listen with my heart. Sophia shared stories of her college days at NYU, sneaking into jazz clubs in Greenwich Village, and how she'd moved to Chicago to start over after her divorce. Her ex, a finance bro named Greg, had left her for a younger co-worker, and she'd rebuilt herself from the ground up. No alimony, no apologies, just grit. One Saturday, she suggested we ditch the city for a day trip to Starved Rock State Park, about an hour and a half from Chicago. We hiked through canyons draped in autumn reds and golds, the crisp air filling our lungs as we laughed about my terrible sense of direction. At a lookout over the Illinois River, she leaned against the railing, her scarf fluttering in the breeze, and said, "You know, Patrick, I haven't felt this free in years." I wanted to kiss her right there, with the river sparkling below, but a group of tourists wandered up, snapping photos, and the moment slipped away. Instead, I grabbed her hand, and she squeezed back, her warmth grounding me. Back in her car, a beat-up but charming old Jeep Cherokee, we shared a thermos of coffee and talked about dreams we'd shelved. I admitted I wanted to write a novel someday, inspired by the gritty stories of Studs Terkel. She confessed she'd always wanted to open a small bookstore cafe, a place where people could linger over poetry and espresso. Maybe we'd stock your novel, she teased, nudging my shoulder. Back at work, keeping our connection under wraps was tougher. Once during a team meeting, her foot brushed mine under the table, and I nearly choked on my coffee. She shot me a smirk, cool as ever, while presenting sales projections like nothing happened. But the tension was building. I wanted more than secret dates and coded smiles. One evening, as we lingered in her loft after a homemade taco night, I brought it up. Sophia, I'm crazy about you, but hiding this, it's starting to feel like we're cheating ourselves. She set down her wine glass, her expression softening. I know, she said. I've been scared too, not of you, but of what people might say. The whispers, the judgments. She paused, then reached for my hand. But you make me want to be brave, Patrick. Let's figure this out together. We agreed to ease into being open, starting small, maybe lunch in public, not just late-night dives where no one from work would spot us. Our first public date was at the Bean in Millennium Park. It was a chilly November afternoon, the sculpture reflecting the cloudy sky and tourists snapping selfies. We grabbed hot chocolates from a nearby cart and sat on a bench, people watching. A street musician played a soulful rendition of Sweet Home Chicago, and Sophia swayed to the beat, her shoulder brushing mine. This feels good, she said, her breath visible in the cold air. Just us, out in the open. I nodded, my heart swelling. But then I saw a co-worker, Mike from accounting, across the plaza. My stomach twisted. Would he spread gossip? Sophia noticed my tension and whispered, Hey, we're just two people enjoying a Saturday. No crime in that. Her calm steadied me, and Mike just waved, oblivious. That moment, small as it was, felt like a victory. As winter crept in, our bond deepened. Sophia invited me to her family's Christmas gathering in Evanston, a big step. Her sister, Rachel, a no-nonsense lawyer, eyed me skeptically at first, probably wondering why her sister was with a guy young enough to be her nephew. But by the end of the night, after I helped with dishes and cracked jokes about Ohio's obsession with Buckeyes, Rachel warmed up, saying, You're all right, kid. Sophia beamed, squeezing my knee under the table. Later, as we drove back through snowy streets, she admitted she'd been nervous. My family's protective, but they see how happy you make me, she said. I pulled over near Lake Michigan, the city lights twinkling across the water, and kissed her. Soft, slow, like we had all the time in the world. You make me happy too, I murmured, my voice thick with emotion. At work, rumors started swirling, but we didn't care. We were careful but not invisible, sharing a quick coffee in the cafeteria, riding the L together after late nights. Sophia's confidence rubbed off on me. I pitched bolder ideas in meetings, earning nods from the higher-ups. She told me I'd brought a spark back into her life, made her see possibilities she'd thought were long gone. One night, as we lay on her couch, a Cubs game muted on the TV, she traced circles on my palm and said, I used to think love had an expiration date. You've proven me wrong. My throat tightened. I'd never felt so seen. We didn't need to map out a future or label what we had. In her arms, with the city's pulse outside, I knew we'd found something rare, a connection that didn't bow to time or expectations. Spring thawed Chicago's icy grip, and with it, our relationship bloomed like the tulips along Michigan Avenue. Sophia and I ventured out more, hand in hand at Navy Pier, watching the Ferris wheel spin against the skyline. We'd share cotton candy, her laughter mingling with the lake breeze, and I'd steal kisses when no one was looking. At work, the whispers turned to acceptance. Our boss even joked about it during a staff retreat, saying, Love finds a way, even in marketing. It felt liberating, no more hiding. Sophia got a promotion to director, and I landed my first big client account, crediting her guidance for my growth. We'd celebrate with picnics in Grant Park, feeding ducks and dreaming aloud. But life threw a curveball when my parents visited from Ohio. Over dinner at a steakhouse in the Loop, Dad eyed Sophia suspiciously, muttering about robbing the cradle. Mom was kinder but concerned, pulling me aside to ask if I was sure. Sophia handled it gracefully, charming them with stories of her Midwestern roots and how she valued family. By dessert, Dad was laughing at her impressions of Chicago winters, and Mom hugged her goodbye. "She's good for you," Mom whispered to me later. That approval meant the world, easing a knot I hadn't realized was there. One evening in May, as we walked along the lakefront trail, the sun dipping into Lake Michigan in a blaze of orange, Sophia stopped and turned to me. "Patrick, these months with you, they've been magic, but I need to know, where do we go from here?" My heart pounded. I'd been thinking the same. I took her hands, the waves lapping nearby. "I want it all with you. Trips to the Rockies, lazy Sundays, maybe even that bookstore cafe dream of yours. Age doesn't matter. You do." Tears glistened in her eyes as she pulled me close. "Then let's build it, together." We moved in together that summer, blending my minimalist vibe with her eclectic style in a bigger place in Wicker Park. Mornings started with coffee on the balcony, evenings with home-cooked meals and talks about the future. Sophia inspired me to start outlining that novel, and I encouraged her to scout locations for her cafe. Challenges came, friends raised eyebrows, the occasional doubt, but our love was the anchor. In Sophia, I'd found not just a partner, but a soulmate who saw me fully. As the city lights twinkled outside our window, I knew we'd write our story, one heartfelt chapter at a time.